and welcome to You Talk Too Much, the podcast where I turn my incessant chatter into a platform for insightful conversation. Today I am joined by the incredible Jono Selvadurai. Jono is a fitness coach with a background in dance. He is a comedian, he is a jack of all trades, but most importantly to me, he is one of the most motivational people I've ever come across in my life. So I'm glad he has said yes to come onto the show. Jono, thanks for coming. How are we?
Thanks for having me. I'm feeling pretty good.
Yeah?
Pretty good.
Pretty relaxed. We've come in from the rain today. I don't know where it's come from.
Couch is nice.
Nice comfort. They're brand new. They're new couches.
Yeah, I'm here for them.
Yeah, cool. So, as you know, we like to go back to the start. So,
right back to the beginning.
Let's back to the beginning, as we discussed. So, where did your journey up until now begin?
Do we really go right back to the beginning?
We can go back wherever, as far as you want.
I mean, well, originally I'm from New Zealand, which you're now going to hear in my accent. Although probably in our time together, it's going to change.
Does it change?
Yeah, it goes American, it goes sometimes Australian. I like to keep it a mystery. Who am I? Where am I from? By the end of this, I'm going to sound like you.
I mean, feel free.
I don't think I can do your accent.
You could try it.
I'd rather not.
We'll try it at the end. So we're from New Zealand.
I'm from New Zealand. Originally, I grew up in a lovely little coastal town called Waikanae, which is very cool. I love New Zealand. Oh my God, how far back am I going to go? I think originally I was a dancer, and that was kind of my big thing, was dancing. I've been dancing from like .1, really. Came out and was dancing.
Yeah.
I was actually talking about this the other day to someone that I was like, I feel like there was this, one of the first videos I remember of me was like as a little kid is like, there's like a little video, like one of those like home recorded ones. And it was like me and my little nappies just dancing around, bopping around. And I feel like I haven't stopped bopping.
Yeah.
Still bopping now.
Yeah.
So yeah, dance was always my thing. Did that all the way through to kind of where I am now, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like it was always dance. And I was adamant to be a dancer. And then actually there was a period where I was like, I'm not going to do dance.
Was that like an age thing, do you think, or just?
Ish. It was like high school. I'm such a goal setter. Like my goal at high school was to be like head boy, and I was.
Tick.
Now what? Goals all achieved. I was head boy, and I think there was a lot of pressure under that to be like, should I go down the academic route? That opens up a lot more doors for universities to a degree. I was like, so I was like, maybe I'll be a lawyer. And then it was like, I remember it being a point that my dance school was like an hour's drive away. And so every day after school, there would be like a little carpool as we'd drive to dance class with a few others. And every day it would be like, I remember someone else's mum would be like, so what's it this week? Like, what are you going to be now? And I was like, I'm going to go and be like a journalist. And then it was like, no, I'm going to go do law school. And then I was like, I'm not going to dance anymore. And then I got into dance school. And then I was like, well, I'm going to go do dance. And I did that. And
so you like fell into dancing.
Yeah.
Well, no, you loved it, but then.
Loved it. And then kind of it was like, well, in my mind, I was like, I know there is an element of having a shelf life in the dance career.
Of course.
So I was like, this makes sense for me to do this now. And if I want to ever swing back to something else, I have that possibility to go back to.
So how old were you when you went to dance college then?
I was 18.
So it was like a university dance college.
Yeah.
And was that in New Zealand?
It was in New Zealand, yeah. So it was New Zealand School of Dance, and I was a contemporary major.
Yeah.
But in New Zealand School of Dance, you do contemporary and ballet together, so you definitely get the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
But what I love about like New Zealand contemporary is very gritty. It's very jumping in and out of the earth kind of thing. And there's a lot of physical theatre about it as well.
Yeah.
And I had some great teachers that really kind of helped me start to find the comedy that I knew that I had in there. Like I knew I liked drama. I've always liked drama from the get-go.
Yeah.
I remember being in little like, drama clubs in Kapiti Coast.
Yeah.
Tiny little theatre. Being a little bat at the pantomime. Although pantomimes aren't really a thing for us. Like that's new for me until I moved here.
That's the thing that I discovered, that as in they weren't new for me. When I went to drama school, there was like Americans or any international students.
Yeah, we don't do that.
The acting course where I went did a pantomime as part of their degree. It was at their Christmas show. It's now changed, I think, but they did a pantomime. And all the international students were fascinated. Like one girl was from, where was she from? She's from Nashville. And she was like, I'm going to take this back to the States and I'm going to be a millionaire. But I was like, I think,
is she?
I don't
Are
think
you
she
still
did.
in contact?
I haven't spoken to her for a while, but I don't think she did. But although
is it Taylor Swift?
That's who it is.
She is now a billionaire.
She didn't need no pantomime. But it is that thing of like, I don't know if like the British pantomime would translate in other parts. Like I think the element of pantomime will, and I think there's elements to pantomime in a lot of comedy.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Like you can go right back to slapstick and all that, but I don't know if it would work.
No.
We should try it.
We should.
You should just do it.
I mean,
should we do a touring pantomime?
I don't know if I want
Should
to.
we do a world tour of a pantomime?
Of a pantomime.
We'll just do
all the pantomimes together in one.
In one, and we'll go to Italy for a week, see what happens.
I mean, try it.
Yeah.
This is the thing. Try, right? Try and then try again.
Literally.
Learn and grow, and this is success.
Yeah. See, I told you motivational. I said it straight up. We're like 5 minutes in.
It's not my best motivation.
It gets better.
Just try and try again.
try again. If you feel again, try more.
Yeah, that's it. That's all I have to say.
So
My
you've
drop.
So you've been a bat in a pantomime.
Yeah, I was a bat in a pantomime.
And then, so from dance, did you go professionally into dance, or did that when it switched to comedy route, or?
I went professionally into dance.
Yeah.
So when I graduated, I danced around New Zealand with a few companies there and a few big shows that we have out there. Toured around a little, was trying to find out where I wanted to kind of be based as well. And I was in Melbourne very briefly and then got a job back in New Zealand. So I came back home. And then there was always like this underlining vision, I guess, a goal of mine from the get-go was always to be in New York. That was kind of like, I was like, that's where I see myself. And then there's this wonderful visa for New Zealand Australians that you can get a year after studying. And I had a mate that had done it and she was like, I think you should do this. I think you should just look into this. And I finished this tour with a company. I thought I was going to get a renewed contract, didn't. And I was like, well, this is it. This is the moment. And I just applied and basically booked my flights.
To New York.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I feel like that was the best thing that I did.
Yeah.
So after a year after graduating, after working a little bit, I then moved to New York. And I lived out in New York for a year, still trying to dance.
Yeah. How did you find the shift of like going from like the home comforts, and I know that I'm talking home comforts as about a nation, but the home comforts of like New Zealand dance, to then go into what I can only imagine is the weird and wonderful world of New York dance and musical theatre and all these things. How was that shift?
It was crazy.
Yeah.
Like I remember the first day, like I arrived and I just remember the sounds, not being used to that type of sounds. It was just, I knew one person in New York as well. And it was just like
crazy.
New Zealand, like you know your network almost. And I feel like I was like, this is insane. And then I remember my first like dance audition, it was like, there was like 100 and something guys. And I remember in like New Zealand, there's like, you kind of know maybe like the 5 of us. Or there's like you and someone else going for the same kind of role.
Yeah.
Which is weird. Like, I feel like I remember that first audition in New York being like, oh my God, I'm terrible. I'm shocking. And my roommate at the time was a dancer as well. And he was like, no, he's like, it's just, they were replacing someone who needed to be this height to fit this costumes. And it was like almost this kind of weirder thing of being like, when there's just a smaller group in New Zealand, you're like, oh, I'm not good enough. Here in New York, it was like, oh no, I'm just not right for this role.
It's interesting that you brought up the costume and all that stuff as well. I was actually having this conversation today about how auditions have changed and the industry has changed. And I don't think it's necessarily changed 100% the other way. I think there is still an element of we have X budget that can alter that costume.
Yeah.
So, for example, if someone's 5'9" and needs to be that kind of body type, there's wiggle room there, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like even 5-10 years ago, I don't even think that was a thought.
No.
Like people would be told like, you're too big for that, you're too whatever for that. Like, and that it didn't come down to talent then. It was like a product fit into that.
And this is, I think, the switch for me. And it was like, oh no, I'm still good. Like I just remember that was like, I did well, go through quite a far point, and it was like all the tall people got cut, and I was like, oh, that kind of makes sense. And it might be like, particularly in the dance world, it's like who, the rep that they're doing, who is it that you're partnering with? Their principle might be of a certain, like, so it doesn't necessarily work as such. I do feel like it's definitely, that's changed.
Yeah.
But it was mad to be in that kind of experience.
Yeah, and I think there's still, as I said, there's elements to that now. I just don't know if it's, I mean, it shows you how little dance auditions I've done in my life. The Royal didn't want me, darling.
No.
But it was that thing of like, it's an interesting, I think even your mindset there to go, it's not me, it's the show or the rep or the company. And I think that's a really healthy thing to have when you're auditioning. So how many years was that after you graduated then? Were you
2.
like, so you're quite early in your dance career at that point. That's a really like wow thing to have, I think.
Yeah, it was pretty big takeaway, I
Yeah.
feel. And I think in that environment, it was like, oh, it kind of made me excited to go to another one, or I didn't take it so personally. And it was a gift to be able to be in this room full of 100 guys as well. And I was
Yeah.
like, I'm not used to this at all. Like, I know the guys in New Zealand at my age that was
Yeah.
going through this. And I was like, this is another experience. And, it just kind of made you kind of be more excited to go for another audition.
Yeah.
I mean,
Which
I
probably
say this-
helps you in the long run of like actually auditioning, because you're like, this is exciting. I'm getting to audition for X. Like,
Yeah.
Rather than go, I need this job.
Yes.
It's like, what will be type.
Yeah. I mean, it's that catch-22 of being a performer, because you are like, I do need this job as well.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're like, I can be all right without it. And I think also my mindset, I knew I only had a year. So I was like,
Yeah.
well, it's okay. If I don't get it, I'm probably not going to be
Do
here
you think
again.
that affected anything?
Definitely. In fact,
Yeah.
I feel like it allowed me to feel more freeing and just being like, this is the year that I have. Now enjoy it.
Yeah.
I do feel like it took me a while to get to that point. If I look back and I'm like, okay, the first 6 months were really difficult and were really hard mentally and my bank account.
Yeah.
And then towards the end, it was like, oh, now I've like got a bit of a group of friends kind of building, and now I feel a little bit more open about it. And I do feel like in New York, it felt more open to kind of create a little bit more of a network.
Yeah.
Whereas here, it was like, well, like by the time I moved here, it was like my visa was for 5 years at the time. I was like, oh, I've got the time to kind of create this.
Yeah.
So it almost puts a little bit of pressure on to be like, enjoy this moment now, because I don't know if I will be here in a year.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was mad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So like in New York,
This is years ago.
did anything come of it? Like, did you end up booking that job that you wanted, or was
No.
it happens, right? That's what's interesting. Like, so no, but you've gained a mindset that will set you up for life.
Yeah. And I also learned, I did get a few jobs. I did a few music videos. And then I think my biggest thing was like, I ended up working like a cheese bar. So my knowledge of cheese is something I
Hey.
would never have thought about.
And if
having
you
a
hadn't
knowledge
done
of.
that year in New York,
Like if you were to put 3 pieces of cheese in front of me, I could probably down tell you, be like, that one's cow, that one's sheep, that one's goat. I was like, that's my biggest takeaway.
that is excellent knowledge.
I mean, it's a little bit, I'm like a little bit out
I wish
now,
I'd
but-
known that. I'd have brought 3 bits
Yeah.
of cheese just to do
Don't
it.
test me.
Just to see what would have happened. That's amazing.
You're like, no, you got that one wrong.
no, that's actually goat's cheese.
They're all goats.
And you're wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
But that's cool. So what after New York, did you go back to New Zealand, or is
I
this when?
did.
And then how long were you there before coming?
Originally, when I went back to New York, back to New Zealand, back to New York. Bless, tear. So I'm still there. I went back to New Zealand, and originally I was supposed to come over here a lot quicker for a job that I had in New York. We're trying to find a way to sponsor me over. And then that kind of dissolved, and then I got a contract back in New Zealand on another show. So I ended up staying for a year at home at my parents', which I'm very thankful for.
Yeah.
But also it was a lot to be living back at home again. And it took a year, and then I moved over here. And I've been here nearly 10 years.
Why did you want to come here? Was it just because you don't want to be in New Zealand anymore?
Kind of.
Yeah.
And I think after New York is why I got back to New Zealand, and I was like, oh, this is quiet. Like I really got into that fast-paced world of New York, and like to the point of like you don't really even wait at the crossing, you just keep on walking. You know that scene in Miss Congeniality when she's like, hey, I'm walking here. I was like, I really got into that.
Yeah.
And then it didn't quite sit when I got back to New Zealand, and it's like a little bit quieter, and I'm walking down the street like, hey, I'm walking here, and there's like no one to react to. So that was kind of a big draw, and I feel like I wanted to keep exploring the opportunities that could kind of be at more of a faster pace.
Yeah.
Which I feel like here there's a lot more opportunities. Whereas I think like in New Zealand, when it comes to the performing world, we get like one musical come over and we're like, oh, it's a big deal. Whereas here I'm like, oh, there is like 12 different musicals on at one tonight.
In one city.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's a strange little.
Blows my mind.
I remember that first time I say the first time, the only time I went to New York, but the first time I went to New York, I found Broadway that kind of like jar in the sense that like in London, most of the shows, yes, there are others around, but like, when you talk about the West End or when you talk about Broadway, it blew my mind that like Broadway and off Broadway, like how actually large scale off Broadway actually is, and like that whole like it is just the Broadway. It's not like every theatre's just lining these streets, a bit like Shaftesbury Avenue here.
Yep.
That's what I envisioned, and like there is streets like that in New York. But it blew my mind that it was like this. That's actually off Broadway.
Yeah.
So although it was like shows that we
But it's
have
so
in the
close.
West End
It's not-
here,
Yeah.
and I was like, but wait, that's a West End show. But I think that's because over here we look at off West End shows. It's like the start of something, right? It's like the creation of something, or it's like a revival or a new adaptation
Yeah.
of a show that's been in the West End, that's went off West End, that's maybe got like a little bit lower budget. Not always.
Yeah.
That whole shift was mad to me. Even like, and as you say, having 12 musicals on at the same time.
It's
Every
just
night,
odd. And you're
8
just like,
shows a week.
and now I have to choose which one, and they're
Yeah.
all like, it's met. Would you ever want to? Would you want to do Broadway?
Oh yeah, I think it's one of the. I was talking about this about a specific show actually, not about Broadway, but to me it'd be like if anyone offered me Broadway, I'd be like, yeah, like how many opportunities are you going to have that? Do you know what I mean?
No, I'm not going to do
No,
that.
darling, no.
I want the off Broadway,
Yes, yeah.
which I would want to do that.
yeah,
as well,
but
actually.
I think a opportunity to work in New York and say I've worked
in New York,
on off Broadway in New York would be incredible.
it's
Yeah.
mad.
Just like even as it sounds really like far fetched, but even as a bucket list.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just like as a career,
it's
I
coming
mean,
for you.
Well, we'll
This
see.
is this right now. We're putting it out there.
Yeah, let's do it.
Any producers listening?
I'm really free. I'm so free. I started a podcast.
You got the time, baby.
Yeah. But anyway, back
I can't wait to sign your playbill.
exactly. Please do. Like one person at stage door. I'm like, yeah.
It will be me.
But when you moved to London, was that still with the intention of dancing still?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, I'm still there.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, no, when I moved here, I think when I knew I was moving here without that kind of opportunity of the job to go
Yeah.
back to New York, I was like, I'm going to move here as a dancer. This is what I want to kind of put out there for. And I kind of like set out this whole like 10-year goal plan. And it was like, this is the thing. I'm going to come over
Yeah.
here, brand myself. And I had all these visions of these companies that I wanted to work for that I had like studied at school. And this was a rep that I wanted to do. And then I moved here and I was like, this is not what I want to do. And that was such a hard place to be within in the first year to then audition to all these things and be like, I'm really now conflicted in what I thought were my passions. And it wasn't sitting right almost.
What was that? Where did that? Do you know where that feeling came from? Was it auditions and just going?
I think it was within those auditions. And I think maybe I had a lot of expectations towards it. And then I remember being in these auditions and dance auditions back at that time. Sometimes you're there for a day, 2 days.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're helping create new material straight away. And then it was like, oh, I'm like, they like me. They like the stuff that I'm doing. And then you don't get anything. Or it was a lot of blocks of people being like, I don't know you. I don't know where you've come from. I don't know your networks in New Zealand. And it was like having to start again. And I didn't know how to get into that. And I didn't know who to talk to or how to talk to about it right. And I don't know, maybe I was young and naive and thinking, I was like, yeah, this will just kind of happen. Like a few contests that I had, I was like, this is going to work. And it didn't. And then I was like, well, it got to a point where I hadn't been dancing for about 2 years. And I was like, how can I call myself a dancer if this isn't actually what I'm doing?
Yeah.
And it was a weird kind of process to be going through that. And I was like, do I go back home? What do I do if I go back home? And it was a very odd place to kind of navigate through. Now looking back.
Was it your? Did any point did you think, is this the end of my dance career? Is that what you were thinking? Or was it a case of you were? So it wasn't even a case of like, I don't like the rep, so I don't want to go back. I'll just go back to New Zealand and dance.
Yeah,
it
no,
was simply.
I was like, well, this isn't going to work out anymore.
That's a crazy mental shift. From having done that year in New Zealand, back from New York to then come here with that intention. So how long did that feeling last? Were you here for a couple of years before that happened?
No, it was all within the first year. It was like,
wow.
I remember it being towards the end of the first year, and I was like, okay, this isn't kind of the route that I want to go down. It wasn't fulfilling as such, like when you eat ice cream all the time, you're just like, I love eating ice cream. And you're just like, one day you go in and you're just like, these flavors just don't.
So it becomes like a plateau,
you're just like, this isn't right. I don't, maybe I'm lactose intolerant. Like,
have I ate so much ice cream? Have I completed ice cream?
I've completed it. I nailed it. No, it was just something that was just, it wasn't there. And there was no, I guess now looking back, there was no drive for it. Yeah. Because I think there would have been, if I really wanted it, I would have made it happen. Yeah. I would have been working, I would have been going to class at the time. And I was like, there just was a point where I was like, I don't really want to do this.
Yeah.
And I was conflicted with this feeling of being like, I've danced my whole entire life. And now I'm going, I don't know.
It's interesting when you look back at, as you were talking about, like when you were in high school, the feeling of like maybe not going to dance. It's like a full circle moment there, but you're in a different country with like having this like crisis almost. Well, I'm saying crisis. I might not have been, but like maybe it was quite a calming experience. Going actually, no, I've completed dance in that chapter is complete. Is that so? Is that when the kind of transition to fitness kind of started to come in?
This is when the transition happened.
So what part of fitness filled that quote unquote void that you were necessarily feeling from a dance career?
This was a transition that was unexpected.
Right.
So I started in a sales job at Rebel, at One Rebel. And I was like, great, I'm gonna be like a business person now. I'm like not gonna wear ballet shoes anymore.
Yeah.
And was working in sales. I was terrible at it because I'm like such a people pleaser that I'd be like, hey, like, do you want to buy a package? And they'd be like, no. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm so sorry. Sorry for bugging you. And they're like, no, you've got to like sell.
Yeah.
sell.
Yeah.
Wolf of Wall Street.
Literally. That's the first,
and I got better and I did actually do all right. But I was a point where I was like, not sure. And then I fell in love with classes. Yeah. I never liked working out. Even through dance school, I was very skinny. I was very intimidated by the other people that I was around. And like when you see people getting cast and the leads or like the partnering work, and I was like, well, I'm so tiny. And that's why I kind of fell into the comedy roles as well. Because they're like, oh, Jono does really great comedy. We'll make this like a comedic character.
Yeah.
But then on the rest of the work, I was like, oh, I'm kind of in the back a little bit, or I'm to the side, or I would be like, oh, I've got an injury. So now I've got to like ice my ankle. I can't do this work.
Yeah.
Which now looking back, I'm like, these are big excuses that I was setting myself.
Yeah.
So I fell into doing reshapes and doing these runnings and workouts. And I remember like, I didn't even own gym kit. I had like, I would work out in my like swim shorts and like a crappy t-shirt. And I was like, that was what I was wearing. And then I got to a point where I was like, well, I'm here all the time. If say like a trainer doesn't turn up, maybe I should just kind of like audition, become a trainer. Maybe I'll do my PT course as well. That's probably something to just have. And it all just kind of fell at once. Yeah. And then they got rid of the sales team. So it was a point where it was like another point, probably like 3 months down the line where I was like, do I be a dancer? Do I not? 3 months later, it was like, okay, you basically need to do your PT course and follow this or go home. And then I did the PT course, started teaching bar, started teaching dance, started teaching reshape, started teaching ride, started to feel that I was like, oh, I've got a voice. I'm not used to that. That was new because as a dancer, it was just movement. Yeah. And now all of a sudden I'm trying to motivate people. I was intimidated by guys being in my class. And I was like, I'm so small and lanky. But then I was like, I can motivate you. And then I can see that you're lifting now heavier. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting. And this is to the beat. And this is all connecting everything that I fell in love with dance, which was almost storytelling, which was presenting an emotion, a feeling. And I'm now doing this in a sense of fitness, was such this like, whoa. And then it just kind of escalated out of nowhere.
And I suppose a brand like One Rebel, we hadn't mentioned that, but yeah, One Rebel is a brand where me and Jono met that we both still work at.
Still work there.
And it's the essence of the class base, I'm saying specifically Ride because of the way it's built, is it's very opposite of an average spin class in the sense that people describe it as a bit more like a club, like a nightclub experience. I describe it more as like, yes, it's a dark room with lights and cool and it's century and it's great and it's aesthetically incredible, but it's also a place where you can actually go and focus on your own training, but in a class environment. So you're there for your 45-minute class, but you're able to like tunnel yourself in. If you want to have that 5 minute, no, this is too much for me, I need to just pull back a little bit. Yeah. It's like I say judgment free. It is judgment free genuinely in a sense that instructors want to get the most out of you. But if you really are like, whoa, no, I'm feeling dizzy or whatever, just pull back, sit back, chill out.
It's like a personal judgment as well. Like I feel like that's why I got hooked on doing these classes, that I was like, I don't have to feel judged in myself in this environment because I felt like I didn't fit in or belong there to be able to lift these kind of weights. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, it's okay because you're in this kind of like you can be alone within that and not feel that you're judging yourself within this.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, but you're around this like community as such where I feel like a normal gym environment is quite daunting for me. And particularly at that start of my fitness journey, it's very exposing.
Yeah. And I think with the class base, we mentioned reshape, that kind of the concept. The few reshapes that I've done since working at One Rebel, I sometimes like, I don't know if it's me and like that's who I am and like a dial in type of thing. Sometimes until like we switch from treadmill to floor, I kind of forget people are there. And then every so often, like you take that back step, you're like, oh, when did you get here? And it's like, rather than being a gym where you can see everything and everyone, because of the way that the music is like produced, I suppose, the way the lights are, I can see why you, with a background in dance, fell into that route of class-based stuff.
Yeah.
Time. Pretty cool.
It's the same with like ride. I was like no for spin. I was like, that's not for me.
Yeah.
Then I didn't. I was like, oh, this is to the beat. Oh, this is movement. This is what I know.
Isn't it? Yeah. So we should say you've climbed your way up and you're now one of One Rebel's master trainers.
Yes.
I was meant to say that at the start. And now that now that we brought this up, I realized that I didn't say that.
Yeah, I missed that.
So how did that journey from just as someone who wasn't involved in fitness, where was the middle ground of becoming master trainer?
This is way back. Yeah. I think when my first 2 years in, I was teaching a few studios as well. I was really starting to find out what my voice is, what my kind of messaging was. I feel like fitness has really changed in that sense of it being more mentally focused as well, which is something that I really wanted to be known for, I guess. And the way that I teach is I didn't want to necessarily just make you feel that you were stronger, but I wanted you to feel like you were stronger as well. And so I think in my second year, I got voted by the public as ClassPass Trainer of the Year. And from that, it was kind of like, by that time I was teaching so much and it just kind of all fell into this kind of route of getting promoted to master trainer. And it was pretty rewarding experience.
Yeah. I mean, you work hard, you get rewarded. It's that thing.
Yeah.
Your classes, I hope you don't mind me saying, are very special.
Thank you.
And everyone who, if anyone listening has been to any of Jono's classes, specifically Ride, I'm speaking from a Victoria Riders, you know what I'm talking about. It's an experience in itself. Motivation, I mentioned that at the start. You're so good at it. You radiate that. Where do you get your motivation from?
Everywhere and everything. I feel like, particularly when I started, I had like this like note on my phone that was just quotes of everything that I found. A lot of reading, I think now that I'm kind of exploring into this kind of comedy acting route, it's films, it's TV, it's things that are making you feel something. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Why is that? And then how do I put my voice onto that? A lot of times I use like music and lyrics as well. How does that make me feel? What's kind of being saying there? And then how do I tweak that and put my voice into it as well? I think one of the biggest advice that I ever got starting up as a trainer was when I was kind of in this battle of, do I belong here as a trainer? Can I do this? Like, am I qualified enough? Am I the right look for this? And someone said, this is your room. This is your, like, if this was your apartment, these are your roles. So what are your roles? What do you want to say? Is it shoes on, shoes off? Like, are we eating at the table or we're eating somewhere else? So starting to own that space that is mine and what is important for me, what I want to hear as well, is really how I then put it out there and how I then start to see how that resonates. And then I kind of want to motivate on that sense of being like, okay, this is the kind of the feeling we want to kind of evoke.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes it just comes in and sometimes you're like, I don't know. And even now I'm like, I've been teaching for 8 years. I'm still thinking, I'm like, does what I'm saying make sense? Like, I'm like, oh my God, listen to this guy ramble on.
But I think that's what's so good about it is it's like you speak from the heart, right? And you like, it's not a lot of your classes when I've been in them. It's not when I've been able to get in them because they sell out. When you're in there, it's like that. Going back to that tunnel vision thing, and it's like it feels like you are speaking to that one person, whoever it may be, and like whatever that person is going through, whether it be the best day of their life, they've got a promotion, they've got a pay rise, I don't know, friends have got good news, whatever it may, or the opposite of that, they've had the worst day ever. It's like they go into that room, they have their 45, 50-minute session, and they either have cried it all out, they've either smiled it out and done all that they kind of like, it's like that's the end of that moment, whatever it's been, and whatever you've said, the amount of people that come out of that class having, like, you see, like, everyone's obviously, like, in a fitness way, sweaty and, like, absolute red in the face and everything, but also, like, some people are really emotional, some people are, like, elated, some people are, like, really set up for the week, and it's just, I think, the power that you have on that, I think, yeah, you should be proud of it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's very special, and I feel like I'm very, very grateful to experience and to have experienced that. I think now, because I'm looking, I'm like, oh my God, I've been teaching for 8 years and it's changed so much. And there's people that have been riding with me for 8 years as well. And I'm like, we've gone through so much on that journey as well. And the beauty of class-based workouts as well is like, you close those doors and like, this is what the space is. Then there's the other beauty of like, it is a workout. That is ultimately what we're here for. You'll get that. And then there's the extra element of being like, something else maybe is a takeaway.
Yeah.
And I love that that's the part that I get to kind of play it. That I know if I strip everything back, the workout is the workout.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful that we all get the chance to move.
Yeah.
But then there's this other element of like, we get to feel a little bit more. We can kind of push into this kind of state. You can release this. And for myself as well, there's days where I'm like, I'm having the worst day. And there's that moment before you open the doors, you're like, oh my God, here we go again. And I'm like, wipe the tear away kind of almost. I'm terrible at crying. So I'm just wipe my face. And then you're like, open the door. And then you're like, I need this too. And a lot of times that's sometimes where my motivation comes from. I'm like, oh, when I get into a zone where I'm like, I need to hear this too.
So let's talk about that. If you like, because I mean, you would never know. It's like a switch. When you're having those darker days that everyone goes through, what is it that gives you the motivation in that moment? Is it the product you're going to provide?
It's the people.
The people.
It's the fact that I know that before everyone comes in, I'm in that room alone. And that's the worst place to be in some places in your head as well, when you're just alone in your thoughts. And then knowing that I open that door up and I've got 80 people and we're all there kind of feeling and moving together at the same time is so powerful. And it's not that in that sense, it's about me. It's about all of us together, a community moving together, a community setting goals together and setting this idea of being like, we're going to move forward together. Like we're going to move forward from this experience together. And now I'm like, I've got like, and I really do believe in energy, and energy shifts and changes. And I'm like, I then get to take that forward and you get to take what we've kind of built together forward.
Yeah.
And I think it's such a nice moment that I'm like, this is for us, not just for me almost.
Yeah.
You know, like it's not about the validation of you like leaving being like, hey.
Yeah.
It's like that's what really gets me through it and really inspires me as well. And I feel like it's the same now when I think about the theater or performing. It's like comedy as well. It's like when you all laugh together, I'm like, I don't laugh necessarily at home watching like a Netflix special, and then you go and see something live together. You're like, oh my God, lol, ha ha ha. You find that funny too. This is like you build each other up.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's definitely what gets me through those moments where I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this. And I'm like, I do want to do it. Like,
but it's so funny because you're saying like, I don't want to do this, but like at the end of the day, it's a job, right? It's like, it's work. So like you might come across this happy, like motivational guy, but everyone's got bad days, right? Everyone has them, and that's great. That's good to have that, and it's good to, as you've just hit the nail on the head, it's good to have that experience as a community.
Yeah.
From there, this is where I'm I can't wait to talk about this. Comedy.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned that when you're in your dance life, comedic roles in there was like naturally coming to you. It was fine. You were discovering that, and then forgive me, I'm saying a few months, but maybe a year ago now, you dived into stand-up.
Yeah, I did.
That's like mental. We discussed this a little bit before. Where did that, was that just a thing of like, I want to do something for me now and I'm going to try stand-up?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, it started a few years prior with improv.
Yeah.
So I did comedy improv. And that was kind of like, I want to get into acting a little bit. I want to get back to performing. By this time, it had been a few years since I'd been dancing. And I was like, I really miss performing.
Yeah.
So I went to improv, as you naturally do.
Yeah.
Right? But which I think everyone should do improv. And I think that's a huge thing that's helped me a lot in teaching as well. But I went into improv, and then through improv, I was really curious in comedy. And then I was like, maybe like I'm interested in writing. How do I kind of accelerate a little bit more of learning more about comedy, understanding more about it? How does that kind of help me in my castings as well? So I fully dived into stand-up last year and was like, I just want to learn about it and I want to understand it. And it's completely different. It blew my mind of how much how much about it I was like, oh, well, that's just like, it's so crafted. It's such a skill. And I'm very daunted by that skill.
Yeah, I think stand up in the comedy world, I've never done it, but I just have a feeling that stand up would be the most humbling experience.
I think it'd be amazing.
Don't even, because
I've been pushing you to do this.
We've been talking about it for a while. It's that thing I don't know where to start. I suppose the know where to start, you got to start. You've got to do it. But I just think
it's right back to the start. Just try something and then move on again.
Yeah, exactly.
See, actually, I did give motivation at the
there
start.
There you are. See? But it's that thing of going, I just think it'd be the most humbling experience. And you hear all these like comics that have now like became A-list, comics that are household names now, listening to them talk about their like first gong shows and like first like time. Like
gong shows are intense. I feel like my first like proper gig, it was like my second gig, I didn't realize it was a gong show. And then my material that I had was it was the only material that I had because I've only just started. So I only had like my first 5-minute set. And the beginning was very like, I guess it was a very long drawn out joke that if it worked, it worked. And if it didn't, it didn't. But for a gong show environment, you need like quick jokes so that the audience doesn't vote you out.
Yeah.
And it was I got there and they're like, yeah, so this is a gong show. And I was like, oh, okay.
Oh no.
It was horrible. But thankfully it was like my friends were there and they were like the chosen judges. And I was like, great, so I'm fine. There was like one person who wasn't.
Did you gong you off?
They didn't, but someone else did. But they needed all three to then like gong me off. But I didn't get it. But I was the first person to get like a gong in the night. So it was like for my second time. And it was horrendous. And I've been scared about a gong show ever since.
Have you done one since?
No.
Do you want to do one this then? Like again?
When my writing gets better. I don't know. I feel like it's kind of, I'm trying to work out, I don't know if I'm so great at like the quick fire one-liner jokes yet.
Yeah.
It's something I'm still building on.
Yeah.
So maybe I need to go back and kind of redeem myself. I mean, I got through it, but.
Yeah. It's just a weird concept, I think. I think that the gong shows are almost like part of the comedy in a way. Because watching a comic stand up there and like it's like Britain's Got Talent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That type of thing. If you get those 3 red X's or whatever it is now, like 10 red X's now, it's just oh no, it's soul destroying.
Yeah.
Especially for your second show. Never mind.
God, yeah.
Imagine if your first show.
It was too much. But I feel like imagine, right? But I do feel like it is a good thing to go through, and I'm very like those experiences of not having your jokes land.
Yeah.
As hard as they are, I do feel like a very powerful kind of lessons and learning in a lot of other elements of my life as well.
Are we still? So you still doing some stand-up stuff? No. I was gonna say
since the Gong Show, I actually have no.
Okay. We did 2 and that was it.
Let's rework this. No, no, I've taken a little bit of a pause just because there was like moments that I was struggling to rewrite stuff and I fell into other things were moving on. But I do actually really want to go back to it. I really do miss it.
Yeah.
So it's just a lot of admin.
Well, yeah, and it's also like you see some like there's some people obviously coming through like I'm gonna say TikTok and all that, but I mean people younger comedians just coming through social media, right? Through sketches. Abby Clark being one that's rising.
Phenomenal.
But seeing what she does, like when she's like on the train doing her bits, I'm like
skills.
That is so intense and such a skill in itself to be able to like rework and do all that. And I think she's doing her first show at the Fringe this year, like officially. So like I'm hoping I get to see it and I hope it goes well because I think she's incredible.
I also agree. I think she's phenomenal.
Her sketches are spot on.
They're
like all that
lockdown
stuff. But all these people that there's some comedians out there, and forgive me, I couldn't name there's a lot of them out there, but people that are so quick on social media with sketches. like a news thing happens and it's like 20 minutes later they have
out.
filmed full production, edited and released this like next viral video, and it's incredible.
It's insane.
Yeah.
This is where I just am like hats off.
Yeah.
I find it quite difficult where I'm like teaching it up at 5 a.m. and then I'm like, I'm just not feeling funny by the time it comes to a show.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I get that.
So
And
I try my material in a spin class now is mainly where I do most of my, if you ever
so
want
if
to
you
come to a
see-
comedy
if you
gig,
want to see a comedy gig,
come 1-2-1-2 with me and I will drop a few lines, which is actually what I do enjoy doing the
yeah.
most.
But it's part of it, isn't it? You know, part of the experience.
It is, yeah.
Not only
the full
you get
baggage.
a nice workout, you get sometimes there's gongs in there.
Yeah.
Now that would be an experience.
I would say, yeah, it would be an
We
experience.
should do a
and I would like, in my
ride
mind,
gong
I'm like,
I'm
kind
gonna-
of do get that
Let's
with class
host
pass
a
reviews.
ride gong show and just see what happens.
I do, because there is quite a few comedians that I know that also do work in fitness as well. I would
Right.
love to do like, imagine if we had like, and it was like a gong show, almost like you get locked off, you have to come off, someone comes on to the podium, takes over the bike instead, like
Like a relay.
right? It'll be like a little relay.
Let's get it done. Let's organise it. Any comedians that are listening that work in fitness and want to
Yeah,
come,
and also, I've seen a few of these comedians running for charity around the London Marathon
Yeah.
on the weekend, so I'm like,
we could do
get
something.
you in.
There we are. We're stuck.
This is great. This is a great idea.
yeah. We're just brainstorming now. This is it.
Yeah, watch this space. Any producers out there?
For the second call out. We are like we're like running low on time. So I'm going to ask you my two
go for it.
questions that I asked for it. So I ask every guest this, and I think it's really interesting with everyone's journeys being different. So if we could go back 10, 15, even 20 years, what's one piece of advice or a piece of advice you would give to a younger Jono?
It's really difficult. It's so hard. Should have probably grown your mo earlier. Would be one advice I would give them. Well, actually, that's yeah. Well, in fairness, I have had a mo for a really long time, and like when I was 13, it was like quite a predominant mustache. So maybe not that one. That was a joke.
Gong.
I was waiting for you to do that. No, I think my biggest advice I would give myself would be like probably just persevere a little bit more. Just really follow the things that you wanted to do and try and find a way of pushing through those fears and boundaries that I personally was setting up into place. And just trusting of finding what I found fun and what brought me joy, what really pushing for that and working for that and feeling fulfilled by knowing that I'm like, yeah, I'm giving everything for this.
I love that. Give 100%.
Yeah.
And then I flip the question slightly and let's go 10, 15 years, 20 years into the future. As scary as it is to think
That is
that far
scary.
ahead, what is one piece of advice from now or a question you'd want to ask or something you may want to achieve or where you want to be?
Shave the mo. I'm kidding. Get rid of the mo. It
No,
has not
actually don't.
served.
It has served.
It has
It's a
served.
beautiful mustache.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you very much. It's freshly trimmed just for you.
I'll say
Wink.
thanks.
So wait, hold on. What was the question again?
So 10, 15 years into the future, what is like one piece of advice or like a question you'd want to ask or what would you want to see happening in that time?
10, 15 years down the line, what do I want? What do I need? What's my advice for you as myself now?
Yeah, just to you, yeah.
What was that very first motivational line I said at the start? Try and then try again.
Try again. And if you fail, try even
Probably
harder.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, no, that will be along those lines. I think it would be celebrate your successes more. Be proud of yourself a little bit more. I feel like really go out there and be like, hey, I ticked this off and that's huge. And I mean, celebrate all the small and the big things as well. I'm starting to learn that now. I want to continue to do that and be really, really big in celebrating those moments of being not so hard on myself.
I think as humans, we are very hard on ourselves, especially as
are.
creatives.
We are.
You want to find the flaws rather than finding.
Yeah.
It's become quite apparent talking like this to multiple creatives that I think a lot of people within this hour kind of go,
Yeah.
let's just actually, which is part of the reason I wanted to start this, is to let's celebrate success,
Yes.
whatever that is to you.
It's so blocking, I guess, of connections with us as performers if we're constantly being like, oh, hard on myself. We're all doing that.
Yeah.
We're not even opening the sign of idea of kind of being able to kind of really hear and connect and
But in that same
create
world,
and-
are so happy for others
Yes.
and supportive of others.
yes,
And like,
secretly on the outside.
yeah. on the
Inside, I'm bitter.
always.
That's the job that I wanted.
But do you know what I mean though? It is that thing. It's like we're happy for our friends
Yeah.
as much, but like we're happy for our colleagues that do well, that get awards. That's why there's award shows. What I know other industries have award shows, but what other award shows are televised? We
Definitely not the Spin Globies.
no the Spin Globies.
They're not
The
televised.
Spinimies.
Yes.
Gong. But yeah, it's like do you know what I mean? It's that kind of like the ClassPass awards aren't televised.
No, they're not.
You know what I mean? Did you get an
No.
award for it? Did you get a trophy
No,
for it?
I didn't.
See, they're not even trophied. It's just a little Instagram post,
No,
which
it's
is great in itself.
Yeah.
But it's that thing of like, we want to celebrate success, but no one wants to celebrate their own little
Yeah.
successes. It's like these like monumental moments. And I
Yeah.
think
Well, I guess it's really hard. But I think it's great that we do we do celebrate everyone else's success. It's what allows our industries to keep going.
Yeah,
Almost. We
very
keep
true.
pushing and kind of egging it on to a degree.
Yeah.
But it is, we do need to up ourselves up every now. Like every day when I get out of bed, I'm like, well done, body. You did that. You stood up.
Yeah.
Sometimes my legs are quite sore. I ain't getting
Well,
any
yeah.
younger.
Yeah. Also, younger thing, but also, I don't know how many people do as many writing classes as you a week, because I certainly don't. But yeah.
Well, whenever you want to, you know where I am. Just
I'll
come-
try
come
my
right.
best. Yeah, I'd love to. Jono, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's went by so quickly.
This was really fast.
We'll have to do it again.
Please.
Maybe 10
This
years in the
couch is so
future.
comfortable.
Yeah.
I'll just stay here. When your next guest comes in, I'm just here.
Just sit there like, told you I wasn't
Who
leaving.
is this guy?
Thank you so much. If any of our listeners or viewers want to connect with you, where's the best place to come?
The best place would probably be Instagram, which is @Jono, JOKNOW, which is just a little fun little play on my words. On my name. And also fun play on words.
But it's
to a
both.
degree.
It's all of
It
the
really
above.
was actually a nickname in high school. It was Jono Nothing,
That's
which
not
is
very
quite
nice.
harsh.
Yeah. And
And I would
did you
be
know
like, no,
nothing?
it's Jono Everything. Yeah.
And now it's an Instagram handle.
Now it's an Instagram handle.
and a brand.
And kind of the easier way to kind of spell my name. Because when you say it, you're like, oh, that's right.
I see it, yeah.
Jono.
Jono. But it's Jono.
Yes.
Anyway.
And yes. It is. That is correct.
Thank you very much for coming on the show. Thank you for listening and watching to another episode. If you could, we are so close to 25-star reviews on Spotify
What?
already, and I really think we can get there. So if you please could hover your little finger over that Spotify if you're listening there. If not, please do it on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening. And rate the show 5-star. It really does help us grow and grow and grow and get even more impressive guests like Jono on the show.
It's like, wait, I'm not impressive.
More impressive shows. Guests
We get
than
better
Jono.
guests. We
No.
will get better guests.
Better guests. Just see, you did it to me.
Dog.
Yeah. We get guests just as good as Jono
Okay.
and beyond. Thank you so much. This has been a messy ending.
Thank you so much. I
So-
really appreciate the messy ending.